We got to fix our democracy before it's too late.
Passing a family bill of rights.
Ending gun violence.
Passing a middle class and working families tax cut.
A collaborative approach to climate change.
Climate change and the lack of economic mobility.
I would pass a $1,000 freedom dividend for every American adult.
Senator Sanders, first thing.
The premise that there's only one or two issues out there.
My first call is to Prime Minister of New Zealand.
The first thing I would do is make sure that we defeat Donald Trump.
Okay.
Period.
And there they are, the day one priorities for the 2020 Democratic candidates in what was a contentious night. Night two of the first debates. Good morning and welcome everybody to Morning Joe, live at the Sugarcane Raw Bar Grill in Miami. It is Friday, June 28th, capping the second night of the first presidential debate, and it was a scrappy one. Along with Joe, Willie, and me, we have... Here are our guests, National Affairs Analyst for NBC News and MSNBC, John Heilman, MSNBC political analyst and former chairman of the Republican National Committee, Michael Steele, stay with me, and former chief of staff to the DCCC and former director of strategic communications for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, Adrienne Elrod. She's an MSNBC contributor. We got a lot to get to. We've been talking a lot already before we got on the air here because last night's debate was feisty and a lot happened. And Joe, I'm going to put you in the uncomfortable position of wrapping it. How did the Democrats do last night?
You know, this is one of those moments where I have to figure out whether I'm nice or whether I do what I get paid to do.
Well, I would say be nice and do what you're paid to do.
Since I want to keep getting paid,
No.
I'm going to do,
Be nice.
with apologies to our friends here and watching, what I get paid to do. Last night was a disaster for the Democratic Party. My only hope is people were not watching, and I will tell you why. First of all, on policy. Well, let's talk about the goal which every Democrat believes, which is we have to beat Donald Trump, right? So they're lined up in trench warfare, ready to get out of the trenches and charge and fight Donald Trump. Instead, they all turn their guns on each other and shoot each other. And everybody's yelling at each other all night. Everybody. Like if you were watching, if you're an American and this is your introduction to these candidates and the Democratic Party, and all you see are 12 people yelling at each other, trying to interrupt each other, insulting each other, you're like, you know what? I thought Donald Trump was a clown show. I'm changing the channel. That's the first thing. Here's the second thing. Won't be popular among the base. But if you want to beat Donald Trump, you may want to listen. It is a position of every Democrat on that stage that illegal immigrants, if they cross the border illegally, should get health care for life.
Right.
It is then the position of every Democrat on that stage that if they cross the border illegally, not even illegal anymore. Now, that may make Democrats feel really good about themselves, right? But that loses Wisconsin, that loses Pennsylvania, that loses Florida, that loses North Carolina, it may lose Virginia. And what these candidates, many of them new to the process, need to understand is that we as a nation were shocked by the picture we saw a few days ago. But there is a vast middle ground between Donald Trump's immigration policies and the free-for-all immigration policies that were pushed last night. I'm going to say also, the front-runner, Joe Biden, man, he was off his game. I must say, won't make friends here. It was one of the more disturbing debate performances I have seen since Ronald Reagan's first debate in 1984. It was one of those moments where you're going, my God, is he going to complete his sentence? There were times he said he was going to give us 3 points. He gave us 1.5 and then did something that Joe Biden has never done. Gave back his time.
Yeah.
But time's up. No, Joe Biden doesn't do that. Joe Biden runs through stop signs. He did that last night. Bernie Sanders was yelling all night. Bernie Sanders didn't prepare for the debate. It showed because he basically gave the same debate performances this year that he gave 4 years ago. It may have worked when it was Bernie Sanders against Hillary Clinton. It did not work last night. And I could go on and on. I will say the one thing about Kamala Harris, everybody's talking about what an extraordinary moment that was.
She's
about
on the show
busing.
today.
She's on the show today, so we can discuss this and give her a little bit of time to come here and figure out a way to whack me for saying this.
No.
But is there really a day in 2020 that wants to say I support busing? Is there really a Democrat today that wants to say, even in 74, I would have supported busing when the overwhelming majority of Americans oppose busing? And by the way, if you're talking about segregation and integration, I guarantee you, schools in Miami today are just as segregated by neighborhood as they were back in the 1970s in parts of San Francisco. It was unpopular then. It's unpopular now. So is this the position of the Democratic Party in 2020, that we are going to get 7-year-old children, we're going to drive them an hour, take somebody from San Francisco and make them go across to Oakland for school, a second grader? No, no, please. I want Donald Trump to lose. My hope is that only Trump was watching last night from Osaka in between snuggling up to Vladimir Putin and saying more offensive, frightening things, mocking the fact that Vladimir Putin undermined American democracy in 2016 and could do it again because the President of the United States has given him a green light. I've thrown a lot out there, Willie.
Yes, you have. But
in the immortal words of Elvis Costello, don't start me talking this morning. I could talk all night. It was a bad sign. For me, as somebody who desperately wants to see Donald Trump taken out of office, but the great news was it's June. We're 7 months away from the first contest. And this was the first time that a lot of these people were on the national stage this way. I think the one really big question from last night, though, was Joe Biden. Not his policy positions, not his past, but whether his time actually is up.
It's all a long way of your saying you're a big Marianne Williamson guy.
All the way. I am all in. Big Marianne Williamson.
No, I think, and I agree, and we talked about this last night, there were some moments that will come back to haunt whoever the nominee is. Kamala Harris, we should point out, raised her hand again last night to say she would eliminate private insurance. She did. She raised her hand. Now, afterwards, she tried to spin out of it again. She's been through this before, but she did raise her hand. Get rid of private insurance. 180 million people.
Can you explain what that means in real terms for parents who want their children to go to the pediatrician that they've known since their child was born?
Well, there are about 180 million people with private insurance. A lot of people with employer-based insurance are happy with that. We had Bill de Blasio on yesterday saying it would be phased out over time. Other candidates explained that yesterday. I don't know how exactly long that would take. A lot of people would lose their insurance for a while. Would they be caught in the middle? This would be devastating to a lot of people, but she's on the record. She could be the nominee. She's on the record for eliminating private insurance. All those candidates on the record last night for giving insurance to illegal immigrants, people who come here, which raises the question, what's the point of the border anyway, if we just let everybody in and give insurance? So,
and by the way, you talk about a magnet. If I'm a parent in any Central American country, and my child has a disease, has a condition, I'm going to try to cross the border, because the second I get across the border, my child and I get health care for life.
With all that said, Michael, we did ask the question yesterday for people being introduced to this group. They'll look at the stage and say, who can I see in my mind's eye standing next to Donald Trump and fighting Donald Trump? That person before last night was Joe Biden. Last night, I think it became Kamala Harris for a lot of people.
I think you're right about that.